everyone, Coomber Radio, episode number 157, if my brain cellulars serve me properly. Now, we've been with you guys for a long time, me and Rachel, me and Anna, various different guests, and we've talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of training, nutrition, life progression, all that kind of stuff, and all that is brilliant. And as of recent, hopefully you've noticed we've taken a bit more of a tangent. We've started to talk about the mental aspects of progression a bit more, our psychology, how we view our body, how we package this stuff mentally and where we're moving with it all, because ultimately all this health and fitness information is useless unless you can package it and use it yourself and know why you're going to do it. So it's very much psychology and mindset that I definitely personally want to tap into a bit more, because I think it's going to help you. Now, I have an incredible guest on the show today. It's an Amazon bestseller. That basically means she's way brainier than I am. She has a PhD, and I'm just a guy in a cottage talking rubbish about nutrition. So we'll pick her brain and we'll get some really juicy stuff. Hello, Michelle Segar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Now, have I said your name correctly?
Yes.
Good. I like to check, because I can anger a guest very quickly by butchering a name. So I have to check. Now, give the guests a quick little who's Michelle, or I should probably say Dr. Seager, right?
You can call me Michelle. That's fine.
Give me a little rundown. Tell people who you are. What got you into the work that you're doing right now? Because I can imagine there's a bit of a personal story behind it as well, which people love to hear.
Absolutely. Well, I've been interested in this topic for about 21 years, and something very specific did happen 21 years ago. Well, I was getting a master's degree in kinesiology at the University of Michigan. So it was February 1994, cold outside. And we were following up with cancer survivors who had participated in one of our exercise studies. We were looking to see if exercise could reduce depression and anxiety in cancer survivors. And we did a randomized controlled trial. And we found that it did. But part of our study design was to call everyone back 3 months after our study was over and talk to them, give them the measures again, but also talk to them and hear what was going on. And this is really the beginning of my research career. Well, I remember all the people sitting around in these different focus groups over that month talking about how great exercise was, how good it was for their health. And I felt so excited, because I thought, wow, we didn't just do good research here that we're going to publish and inform the world about. We actually help these people get exercise into their lives and benefit. But guess what? We shortly discovered that almost everyone had stopped exercising when our study had ended 3 months before. So I was shocked. So I started asking the participants, well, I heard you all talking about exercise and how great it was. Why would you stop exercising? And they said, oh, Michelle, we have to work. We have to cook. We have to take care of aging parents. We have kids. And what became very clear to me in that moment was that these people had stopped exercising not because they were cancer survivers, but simply because they were just busy adults living their lives. And the fact that people who had faced a life-threatening illness did not feel comfortable prioritizing their own self-care, to me, signified a tremendous problem in our society. And at that moment, I decided that I was going to solve it. So everything I've done since then has been in service of learning. What is everything that prevents people from staying motivated to exercise and prioritize their own self-care? And how do we turn those things around? So then I went and got a second master's degree in behavioral health education, developed a protocol and method that I developed in the community as a business. And then I went back to get my PhD in psychology focused on motivation. And that's how I got here.
Wow. Okay. Let me straight away pick up on a really key point, because it probably underpins a lot of stuff. Now, there's a gazillion people out there that aren't caring for their health. You've uncovered that you've worked with people that have stared in the eyes of a life-threatening disease, and they're still not concerned about taking care of their health. talk about some of the mechanisms of why you think people aren't willing to sit down and say, I need to make these steps, I need to invest in my health for both the short and the long term.
Absolutely. And to tell you the truth, I think this issue is the core barrier to sustainable exercise. In all the years I've been doing it, I feel that this is it. It's really motivation, changing that is really very easy. But helping people change their mindset so that they will prioritize their own self-care day in and day out, that's what they have true difficulty doing. And let me tell you why I think that is. We have all been socialized to value achievement, to value family, and these are great values. Our professional achievements, succeeding in life, having kids, having happy families. And so those things become our top priorities. We have not been socialized with the perspective that we are the source of the energy for everything we do in life. And if we don't nurture our own energy source and our own sense of well-being, then we have that much less to give to all these really important endeavors in our lives. So the big answer, the short big answer is that society hasn't taught us that it's okay to prioritize our own self-care. And so that's the crux of what gets in people's way. Now, we can turn that around, but you asked me really what's happening. People don't have beliefs because they haven't learned them in society.
Okay, so I think those beliefs are there in a lot of people, but they're being suppressed. So they're being suppressed by others, and I think this is definitely key in females, that they don't allow themselves, or they don't feel they deserve to really look after themselves, to look good, to feel good, to actually spend time for themselves, to go to the gym or go to a spa or go visit a friend for coffee. So, is it just an oppression? And how do you kind of remove those oppression? How do people learn to prioritize themselves?
That's so I used to think it was just women, but since I've been talking about this over the last few months and few years, men are coming up to me and saying to me, Michelle, I don't give myself permission for self-care. And so I do think there's a bit of societal oppression, if you will, about this issue. But the beauty is that once we start talking about it explicitly, it helps people. See, the thing is that because our beliefs are developed through socialization and society, we're not even aware that they're in our heads and that they're guiding our choices. In fact, research shows that most of our decisions every day occur unconsciously. We're not even aware of them, and they're often emotion-based. So if that's the case, then even though if I decide I'm going to exercise, I sign up, maybe I start working with a personal trainer, but deep down underneath that, I believe that my husband's or kids' needs are more important than mine. My job is more important than how I feel every day. Those beliefs are actually going to trump the conscious decision, I was going to go to the gym today, because that's a very powerful belief. So raising people's awareness, and this actually gets to the formula that I have in No Sweat. It's called MAPS. And this MAPS represents the method that I've developed to take people through the process, through their specific beliefs, so that they can transform them and come out on the other side actually feeling like, you know what? I know I have a lot of competing priorities, but how I feel and how much energy I have truly does influence everything I care most about in my life. So I'm going to start prioritizing that.
That's amazing. I love the fact that already we've talked about exercise, but we've packaged in beliefs, which are the core essence of everything that we do. I don't know if you've heard of him. I'm a big fan of a guy's work called Michael Happel. He's kind of a bit of a motivational speaker. We've had him on the show before. He talks a lot about values, what you value in yourself, what guides you, whether it's honesty, integrity, love, passion, ego, whatever it might be. And for me, I talk a lot about if people are unsure about life direction, look at your values, because the decision that you need to make needs to connect to your values. And now on a more personal level about life choices and about personal progress and value, you're now tapping into the beliefs that they have, and that links to things like religion, all sorts of stuff. So talk to us more about why you wrote the book and why you think drilling into beliefs is important, because I think loads of people listening to this should buy your book and just go through the process of learning their beliefs if they don't read any other part of the book.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. So our behavior follows our beliefs. So anytime someone wants to change any behavior, they have to go to the seed, which is the belief. And because beliefs are invisible, if you will, we have to become aware that they exist. We also need to become aware of where do they come from. Did we have a parent role model that either modeled to us that it's important to take care of everyone else to the exclusion of your own needs? Or did they have a parent that modeled, it's important for our family to go outside and be active together because not only is this a way to spend quality time together, it's good for us and we're going to energize ourselves. So we want to understand where the beliefs come to. Are they just from our family of origin? Or, and most likely, do they come from the greater cultural context and the magazines we look at and the people we see in the gym and the media personality? So that's really important. And what I do in the book is I ask people to identify specific beliefs, both about exercise, which relates to the motivation pathway in sustainable exercise, but also about the separate, what I call the self-regulation pathway. And that self-regulation is it's kind of a jargony clinical term that means management. How do we manage ourselves every day? Do we plan things in our calendar? If we're leaving the door for a planned exercise class or for something else, maybe to go to sleep, if the phone rings, do we feel like we have to pick it up, even though that potentially is going to derail everything we're about to do for ourselves? Mm-hmm. So self-regulation is this other core component, and the permission to prioritize our own self-care is what determines whether we effectively self-manage or self-regulate ourselves over time. And that's the second core part of the solution. I really haven't read other people talking about this part as it relates to how to get people to stick with exercise for their whole life. But again, it goes back to the cancer survivor story. If people who faced a life-threatening illness do not feel comfortable prioritizing their own self-care, wow, what are we teaching people in society? Actually, I want to give you an example. Someone who read my book told me about a story. She was talking to her uncle who was in cancer treatment. This gets at our beliefs. This uncle, a dearly loved uncle, was in the middle of chemotherapy, and his doctor told him to be physically active, but he wasn't doing it. And my friend, who was in the middle of the book and was learning about these ideas, she said, well, why aren't you being active? He said, well, all I can do is walk around the block. Why would I buy? That's not worth it. So here's a cancer patient, who actually has been told by their physician to be active, but because their belief about what exercise or activity is supposed to look like, they're not taking the walk around the block. They could possibly reduce nausea, help energize themselves, reduce fatigue. So our beliefs are just the seed of all of our choices, and that's why they're absolutely the key to shifting our behavior in ways that we're going to sustain. We can change our behavior always for the short term, right? New Year's Eve, wedding, summer, people often make a behavior change and we think about it in the short term, but the reality is that if we are going to sustain a behavior like regular exercise or like getting enough sleep at night, we have to understand, and this is getting right back to what you said, Ben, we have to understand how that behavior completely links to what we most value and cherish. in our lives. And if we can't make that connection, and again, no one's taught us to do that, we need to teach people. That's what the book is about. Then the behavior like exercise is not relevant enough to our daily lives that we're going to prioritize it.
Amazing. I think beliefs are dangerous in the most simple of ways. If you talk to someone about exercise, like your example with the person undergoing chemotherapy, if you said to someone you need to exercise and they believe that exercise is going to a gym, doing 20 minutes of cardio, 40 minutes of weights, 30 minutes of core, and they can't fit that into their day, and that's how they package exercise, then it's unachievable. And I've been a big promoter that, look, if you're a busy mum and you haven't got time to do things, you haven't got the energy, but you know that physical activity is beneficial for your joints, for your brain, your well-being, whatever, I don't care if you do 10 squats while you're doing the laundry with the laundry basket, or it's a brisk walk up the street, because a little bit is better than nothing. That's it.
Absolutely. And people don't believe, there's the belief again. People don't believe it because our greater mindset about exercise has come out of very prescriptive recommendations, right? We're supposed to be doing at a minimum, 30 minutes of moderate intensity movement 5 days a week. Well, the problem is that these recommendations that are really global to some extent have been based on dose responses in laboratory settings, right? How is health optimally going to result from our exercise? But the problem is that when we take those laboratory-based recommendations and then we don't translate them in any way so that people can actually realize them in real life, then we're actually shooting people in the foot. And so what we need to do, what I think is a better message, is to tell people that everything counts and choose to move whenever and wherever you can, because you're going to feel better immediately from moving.
Of course. Okay, segue. I think with anything diet related, there's always this beast known as willpower. People think that you've either got it or you haven't. What's your take on relying on willpower to do these things? What's your take?
Sure. So as part of my path of learning on this topic, I learned about willpower and what the research and science had to show. And here's what we know about willpower. Willpower, or we could call it self-control too, depletes with use. And it actually depletes every time you make a choice. I'm going to eat that. I'm not going to eat that. I'm going to go exercise. I'm not going to exercise. But even, what am I cooking for dinner? And which computer should I buy? Every decision actually uses glucose in our brain. And so that glucose depletes. So the more we make choices and decisions, the more it depletes. So now let's go back to exercise. If your exercising depends on willpower because you really don't want to do it, or it's not a meaningful part of your life, or it actually somehow makes you feel self-conscious or bad about yourself, your willpower is being depleted all day long. So it's not a dependable resource to motivate your exercise. People think in very self-deprecating ways about themselves. Oh, I'm just lazy. I don't have enough willpower. But the reality is that willpower depletes with use, and it's not a good source. Now, I do want to say we can improve our self-control and our willpower when we get more sleep. Practicing, we can build it. The problem is it doesn't dismiss the reality that the more we use it, the more it depletes. And so that's why I say it's not a very good or dependable resource if that's what you're counting on for your exercise.
Interesting, because the decision to do these things is often a mental thought process, which is amazing. You've explained that there's actually a biological reaction that's happening here to do with glucose. Now, if there's anything that I personally suffer with in my life, I call it decision-making fatigue. Now I have to make a huge amount of decisions in my daily life. There's an awful lot of people that depend on my time, and sometimes I'm getting to mid-afternoon and I'm like, wow, like if someone else asked me for a decision, I might cry, like, but what then happens is what you're describing is I'm booked into the gym at 3. I train with my training partner, we a couple of days a week at 3 o'clock, and I'm sat there going, man, I don't want to go to the gym. And it's not a case of willpower, it's a case of, you're right, I've depleted the energy to even just make the decision to get in my car and go. Now, this is why I think actually preempting and scheduling all this stuff is really important. So, for example, on a Monday, at the end of the day, I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I know I'm going to go to the gym at 3, eat roughly around this time. I've got an appointment at 4, da 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 da. So you pre-plan your day. And sometimes for a lot of people, I think that this kind of quote around just do it is actually really important, because when you actually get there and you turn up, you realize that your body has more than enough capability to do it physically. Like, I have more than enough power and strength to get in the gym and do what I do. It was just a mental shortcoming from the energy that had already been sapped out of my brain. So I get to the gym and actually I had an amazing workout and it was absolutely fine. So sometimes you just got to do it.
So that's true too. So in a way, what we have is a continuum where we want to make sure that we respect the physiology of self-control and willpower, but we also want to recognize that sometimes when we put systems in place, that's able to get us over the hump and prevent us maybe even from using the willpower. For example, if your friend is picking you up and you don't even have to drive there, that's another thing in place that could do it. If I may, I would like to suggest another possibility for some people. Mm-hmm. I've been doing some research recently with mothers with young children, and we're finding that they're very depleted a lot because they have a lot of work and decisions making around, caring for their children, running their house, and working. And so what we're finding is that they may be so depleted at times. If they believe that they have to do exactly what they had planned to do, they don't feel like they have the energy to do that. So another suggestion for people who are very depleted from, multiple caregivers are, they really have a lot on their plates, is to shift and change the type of physical activity they do on any given day. If they need to shrink the amount of time or change it from a high intense workout to a low intense walk, if that's going to get them to do it, teaching people how to be consistent through the low energy, through the curveballs from work, that's what helps people sustain a physically active life. And so I think what we want to do is create a continuum of what's possible so people living in different types of circumstances can actually be successful sustaining it for the rest of their lives.
Brilliant. Fantastic. There's a point that I didn't actually elaborate on earlier. I want to actually come back to the belief scenario, because I believe, keep saying the word, I believe that there's so much power in this, and I want to kind of tap in again to the process that you use in the book, actually, because I want people to know why they might benefit from your system. When I believe someone needs to rewire a process, you've mentioned that the subconscious is largely very involved. So if we make a conscious decision to do something, if our subconscious isn't programmed to do it, it's very hard to rewire whatever that process is that has been built by a belief. Now, I don't know whether you talk about this or not. I believe that self-talk is amazingly powerful, and creating almost mantras and these kind of forms of meditation is a real key to success in literally any area of your life. Now, what I struggle to get across to people is how to actually package this, because it sounds almost very voodoo. Now, I find it very easy if I sit in front of an individual one-to-one to show them what I mean. I'll sit there literally and close my eyes and I'll talk them through a self-talk process that I will do. And it sounds weird because to other people, it's tapping into your ego. But what I think people need to believe is the ego is an amazingly powerful tool. The ego is you. The ego is your inner self, and you need to reprogram your inner self and be at one with it. So do you use self-talk, and almost what's your opinion, and how do you get people to think about self-talk and even taking 2 to 5 minutes out of their day to apply it for benefit?
So I think you're absolutely right that what we say to ourselves really influences how we feel. And, the word that comes to my mind is awareness or mindfulness. When we become mindful of the types of things we say to ourselves, in fact, we can't even change what we say to ourselves unless we become mindful and aware of them. And that's why awareness is the second part of my MAPS formula. And so what I do in the book, because whether I'm coaching someone, through the phone or through Skype, or whether they're reading the book, they still need to have their beliefs and their self-talk elicited. So you ask people a question just straight out. What do you tend to say to yourself or believe when this happens or when this doesn't happen? And then you get them to assess. This is your belief. This is your self-talk. Do you think this is actually helping you or getting in your way? And most people will recognize, I know I do it all the time, but I know that it's getting in my way. It either makes me feel bad about myself. So there's this process of illumination of beliefs and self-talk that has to happen. And then there's like a reconciliation, in your face with yourself. Is this helping or harming me? And then once people make that choice, then you can't go backwards, because once you've gained awareness, you can't put your head in the sand anymore. Then the question is, well, what would be more helpful, or what would be more self-compassionate of me? So I've been studying the work of a self-compassion researcher. Her name's Kristen Neff. And she's done some remarkable work showing how demotivating it is when people judge themselves negatively. Oh, I'm lazy, or oh, I'm a bad person. And instead, what they found, and they've even also shown physiological responses when people are self-compassionate with them. So let's say you're anxious about something, whether it's going to the gym or anything. And instead of going, I wish I didn't feel this way, trying to reject it or resist it, you go, oh, I'm aware that I'm uncomfortable right now. I am suffering. I feel anxious. And this is part of being human. This is actually her exact mantra. And then you connect it to, well, may I just be kind to myself during this tough time? When people are self-compassionate, there's something that happens that's transcendental. And I wonder if it's similar to what you're talking about with the self-talk technique that you just told me about.
Okay, so nuts and bolts, we've got an individual that believes something that's holding them back. Now, if they are aware and take themselves into the moment and say, right, I realise this is negative, is one of the processes that you're kind of talking about, that they have to repeatedly try and unwire that negativity. Because there's one point of being aware, which is great, and then there's another point of doing something about it.
Absolutely. So the way our neurological pathways are wired is these are automatic pathways. It's like having a well-worn path in a field. You've got this all this tall grass, and then the negativity is the only path that's there. So the way our brain works is the more you do something, the more you reinforce it. So the way to get a new path, a new positive path, is you want to. Research shows that mindful attention, non-judgmental attention to the beliefs. Again, instead of saying, oh, I'm such a jerk, I think this way, you go, oh, there's those beliefs that give me the well-worn path to negativity. Hello, beliefs. I see you're there. I know you're not valid. And instead, I'm going to choose to be kind to myself or feel that I can do it. So we do have to practice. And that's another reason why beliefs come before behavior. If we want to change our behavior, even if it's performance-based, we've got to change the way we think and perceive. And that goes back to the packaging in the head, as you talk about.
I'm gonna ask you about something I've never asked anyone on the podcast before, because I think it's actually quite a dangerous topic. And I'm not going to ask you kind of personally. Now, I see religion as a massive area of conversation that is kind of dangerous. Like, never bring up religion at a dinner party. But do you see religion as playing sometimes a negative role in people's beliefs and actually paving themselves forward and progressing because of what they believe within that religious context?
Well, I don't think it matters what the context is. I think what matters is whether the context has, whether it's a cultural context, a religious context, a familial context, an educational context. Our contexts influence what we believe, but they also either support or thwart three basic needs that influence whether we become kind of flourish as individuals as well as stay motivated. So what I'm referring to is research out of self-determination theory, which is really one of the leading theories in physical activity research today. And what it shows is that if a context like a school or even an exercise class or a personal trainer is a context, if that context supports people's needs for autonomy, that means that people feel a sense of volition and choice in what they're doing. Can they choose the exercise that they do? Or is someone saying you have to do this for it to be valid and to count? So we want to support people's autonomy. We want to support their competence, the second human need, which is, do we feel that we can do something? Do we feel capable of doing a behavior? So if someone is told, oh, in order to be a valid exerciser, you have to run a marathon, and someone's just starting a walk, well, they're not going to feel very competent or self-efficacious or confident that they can do it. And the third need that context influences how related people feel. So do I feel isolated and alone because I don't look like anyone in the gym? Or are people saying hello to me and I see all kinds of bodies and shapes, which tells me that I fit in? So basically, whatever context we're in, those are the three needs that, if supported, people adopt the behavior. They develop a high quality motivation, and it also helps them as people enhance their sense of well-being and who they are. But if contexts thwart those things or undermine those three needs, then it doesn't help. It makes people anxious, and it prevents them from really embracing a behavior like exercise.
Okay, interesting. Beliefs, behavior. I don't want to kind of force you to repeat yourself. So tell me if I'm kind of on the wrong train of thought. But people have a why they do things. How do you help people choose the right why, or is it a case of having a belief that will lead to the right why?
That's a phenomenal question. And here's beliefs, they actually determine the whys or reasons for a behavior. So I refer to whys as the reasons or motive for adopting a behavior like exercise or changing our behavior. And depending on our beliefs, exercise is going to make me skinny. Exercise is going to help me prevent a disease. Those beliefs actually determine which whys or reasons for exercise people choose. That's why we have to consider our socialization and getting new messages out into the cultural context, because we want people to understand that there's all these other whys, what I call the right whys for exercise, which both help people feel good in the moment. I'm going to exercise because it immediately gives me more energy. It immediately lifts my mood. It's a way for me to spend time with people that I love spending time with and laughing with. These are immediate benefits from exercising. And furthermore, these immediate benefits, we could call it positivity, revitalization, that becomes a resource for then these other things that we talked about earlier, the things that matter most to us, our values. And so what we want to do is, and this gets back to your question about whether contexts help people develop kind of unhelpful beliefs. Our society as a whole, especially in healthcare, at least in the United States, has taught people to have beliefs about exercising that are so limited that people always approach exercising with the wrong whys, based on future abstract, vague benefits from exercise that people may or may not ever get. But research shows that people only continue to do a behavior when they get feedback consistently that a behavior is helping them. So if your why for exercising is to avoid a disease, even though that may be a very valid and good goal, where are you going to get the feedback that your daily exercise is helping you achieve that goal? So that's not going to continuously motivate it. In contrast, when people exercise because they feel better immediately, I mean, you talked about how when you go to the gym and you do that workout, how amazing you feel afterwards. That feeling reinforces, it creates this link between liking and wanting. And in fact, the neuroscience of reward, which I talk about in the book, suggests that when we create this positive association between the outcome of the behavior and actually doing the behavior, we learn it and it becomes very motivating, actually unconsciously.
Wow. Okay. In terms of looking directly at the book, we've talked a lot about potential processes that you talk about in the book. If you were to almost sell the benefit of the book, because I want people to kind of almost sit here now and go, I think that book can help me, but actually no, I'm in a good place right now. What do you find that people learn from the book in terms of how it can take people forward positively?
Great. Well, so I wrote the book at a point when I was doing my method, my coaching with individuals, and every time I asked the same question, people would give a very similar response. It's very systematic. So I wrote the book to help both individuals take themselves through the process, but especially to help professionals like fitness professionals and clinicians and wellness professionals understand the levers of sustainable change. So the book actually shows the full method that I've developed and been using, and even have published data showing that it created long-term exercise. It's a very user-friendly. There's real client stories that are very entertaining, and I explain the core science in really user-friendly ways. So it's this unique package of information that people can walk away with, whether individually or professionally, to understand this is why people fail, and this is how to turn it around. I also want to note that I developed a free teaching guide that's available on my website to accompany the book, and the book is starting to be adopted in university courses related to this topic, so that the newly trained students in health and wellness and fitness and even diet, even nutrition, are using the book now to learn the new science. It's kind of like there's a new generation of science that practitioners haven't learned yet. And basically, the stuff that I found over 2 decades that's most relevant to creating lasting motivation and sustainable behavior change is in the book and readily accessible to everyone.
I was kind of going to end the show there, but I've picked up on something that I really want to talk about. I had Dr. Jay Teta from the Metabolic Effect on the show a couple of episodes ago, and we talked about the concept of failure and how people can't progress when they feel that they've failed. Now, I think this is a big problem in fitness and health because everyone wants a plan, and when the plan doesn't work, we experience failure. So I know a lot of nutrition coaches that will give someone a diet plan, 7 days, meals, etc. And when someone deviates from that plan, it's almost like, oh shit, yeah, I'm going to need to go back and start again on Monday, or I can't do it, it's too strict. So do you think because we talked about having a plan B as well, when plan A doesn't go to plan, is there a plan B?
Yes.
Tell me how you're packaging this in terms of failure and reward and yeah.
Yes. That's a fantastic and really important question. So people do feel like they failed, especially just with exercising in general. So there's a chapter in the book called Escaping the Vicious Cycle of Failure, and actually that's a free excerpt that's on my website that people can get, michellesegar.com. But what I encourage clients to do, and I actually have a formula in the book that helps people create those plans. It's not very scientific, but there's a scientific term for plan Bs, and it's called if-then planning or contingency plans. Mm-hmm. And research across behavior shows that contingency plans are very effective in helping people continuously stick with their behavior. They're very important. And so, there's a worksheet in the book that asks people the specific questions that help them identify what are the potential situations that may trip you up. and how might you prevent them, but if you don't prevent them, what's plan B, C, and D? So you've got a variety of options. And again, I think flexibility towards our exercise can be an incredible tool for people who haven't been successful with kind of rigid plans. When you learn to be flexible and you change your plans and goals according to what happens on every day, you're able to accommodate physical activity in this hectic life and stick with it. So I think that's one of the key takeaways, is also that nothing is ever truly a failure if we consider this whole exercise, physical activity thing is one big learning process. You know, my kid's in elementary school. When he goes to a different school, my schedule is going to be thrown off, and I'm going to have to learn again, what am I going to fit in? Where is it going to go? What's going to get in the way? So throughout life, we have these seasons, whether it's based on the weather, whether it's based on our kids or our spouse's work schedules. And if we can learn to negotiate the behavior in the life, which is what you're talking about, having plan Bs, then we're going to be more successful.
Do you know, there's so many small cues for all of this stuff in life. I was in the gym today with my training partner, and it's the first time that we deadlifted for quite a while. Now, I tell this story because a lot of people will do these kind of movements and relate. And I deadlifted the week before, and he hadn't. So I was kind of almost a workout ahead of him. And I deadlifted the weight that I knew I was going to hit, and it was going to be a PB for me for that session. And he then went to lift the same amount of weight. Now, he had a belief that he would lift that bar purely because I just lifted it and we're following the same program. Now, he went in and did 2 reps instead of 5. He stopped, and you could see the look in his eyes he'd failed, because he had the belief that the plan A would work, and when plan A didn't work, there was no plan B. And I was like, whoa, hang on a second. I was like, I could see it in his eyes. I was like, you feel that you failed, haven't you? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, no, you got the weight before that. It's just your belief that made you think that. You can't now look at this situation as failure. It's just not quite what you expected. And that's
it's a step. It's a step in the next, it's the next step. So if we start to think about things as progressions, instead of in black or white, hit or miss, bullseye, failure, if everything's a progression and there's all this possibility, and we just keep learning how to do it better, it really creates a much more motivational situation for people.
Michelle, this has been a fantastic show. I think this information is going to be what a huge amount of people need. I'm very excited to have you on, and it was great to get this content out. Now, your book, No Sweat, where can people buy it for people that would like to delve into all this information we've just had a chat about?
Well, you know, in the UK, I think it's on the Amazon website in the UK. It's certainly in the United States. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble, and it's all over local bookstores too. So, what I want to say is that places been running out of the book. So please, if you go to a website or to store to buy it and it's not there, please be patient. Shoot me an email or ask your bookstore to start carrying it.
Yeah, that's the problem when you're a #1 bestseller, hey? You sell out.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It was really a pleasure to meet you.
You're welcome. So for people that are listening, the book, No Sweat, that's sweat as in the we sweat when we exercise, SWEAT. And Michelle's name is Michelle Segar, Segar. In case you want to look that up properly, this link will be in the show notes so people can find it. Michelle, apart from that, let us know your website. Are you on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere like that people can maybe keep up with your information?
Sure. So I do have a Twitter handle, and it's Michelle Segar. It's at Michelle Segar. And my website is my name, michellesegar.com. And I hope people will check out. I keep doing research, so I'll keep publishing, learning new things, and blogging about it and putting it up on Twitter. So I hope you'll follow me. And I want to leave you all with one message, and that is, it's your move.
Nice. Love that. Right, everyone, if you have enjoyed this show, please get in touch with myself and Michelle on Twitter afterwards. Let us know what you enjoyed about the show. Maybe let us know the next move that you're going to take. You know, whether you've gone through the process of looking at your beliefs and stuff. You know, it's really nice to hear that people are using or have resonated with the information. So don't go all silent on us. Tag us in on Twitter, have a chat, connect with Michelle. She's there, she's friendly, she wants to talk. If you have a problem with the book, ask her about it and check out her work. Like it is fantastic, Michelle, to talk to a scientist that is able to readily communicate and apply that information to the general public. Sometimes these scientist types do struggle a little bit to get that stuff out there, so it's really nice that you're doing that. So thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
And for everyone listening, I will be back with Rachel next week for our usual Q&A rant-filled mashup. And in the meantime, take care, and I will speak to you all soon. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 156. That is correct. That is 100% correct. 100%. I am full of energy, and I'm even wearing a top to celebrate the fact that today, well, the day that we're recording this, is the beginning of the Rugby World Cup, which is an incredible thing because it's in the UK. And as you might have known, I do play rugby.